it is time. It is Immortal Empires time. Now, this is not the actual launch of it. In this blog post, they're going to go through the details of the Immortal Empires, and I'm going to go through them here with you today. But in the essence of saving you time so you don't have to wait through this entire video just to figure out some information, just a heads up that the Immortal Empires beta will be launching sometime in August, and it will be marked as a beta, but it will be part of the main game. It's not going to be part of a separate beta opt-in or anything like that. So if you want to play Immortal Empires with your friends or on your own, but then say you want to do multiplayer quick battles, you don't have to swap versions. It's just simply going to have a tag in game that mentions beta. And with that beta, it's also going to be including, I think it said something like 86 legendary lords, all legendary lords across the entire map. So a lot of fun stuff is coming with it. We're going to go into a lot of detail of this video. We're going to talk about some things here and there, but that's just to kind of save you time. That's all you wanted to know about this as far as when is it coming, what's it going to entail, so on and so forth. That is pretty much your Spark Notes version of what this blog post does entail. Some other cool, fun, exciting things are stuff like sea lanes, other fun stuff that is coming with Immortal Empires. But that's your down and dirty. And if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to head on out. But before you do, please don't forget to like, comment, and or subscribe. I can't tell you how much those things really help and really mean a lot to me if you're just going to bounce out of the video at this point. Like, I can't tell you how much it does for any content creator you do watch. But for those that want to stick around for the nitty and gritty, let's get started here on an introduction to Immortal Empires behind the scenes. And I've got this blog post ahead of time, so it's just pretty much an image we're going to be looking at. You know, when I was looking at this post originally, I didn't see this was Kislev versus Greenskins, and that just looks so damn cool. So I'm excited to see some of that fun action going off, even though you already kind of have that happening in the game as it is. But Immortal Empires is easily the most anticipated game mode coming to Warhammer 3 and represent the world-encompassing vision we've been working towards since first partnering with GW nearly a decade ago. So we have a big rollout of this. For all looking to get your hands on Immortal Empires, we're aiming to roll out the beta version of the game mode this August. And we'll explain exactly what we mean by beta, so on and so forth. But what's new in Immortal Empires? So this is the juicy part. Access to all 86 legendary lords from all 3 Total War Warhammer titles, which is awesome to think of. Be'lakor is now legendary lord with his own faction. So very curious to see how that plays itself out. Dedicated factions for a number of the older legendary lords, including Grombrindal, Helmengorst, and Volkmar the Grim. Volkmar is finally going to get his own faction that exclusively focuses on sweet-ass mustaches. New starting locations for 29 of the older legendary lords. So I would expect people like Tretch Craventail to move back home into the Darklands and away from stuff like Nagaron. So I'm curious to see how this kind of plays out. I think things like, what's his name? Clan Eshin, not Tretch Craventail, we already just said him. Deathmaster Snikch, I could probably see him over in the Cathayan lands, and you can have a lot of fun moving all of the Demon Princes to all these different locations. So very excited to see what this map looks like with all these changed legendary lord placements. Improved personal faction mechanics for a selection of the older legendary lords, such as Volkmar the Grim. I imagine anyone with a new starting location or dedicated faction probably has some sort of swap around of the sort. Not necessarily an old world update, of course, but some sort of tooling. A new sea lanes feature, which allows you to move armies between distant lands and continents from one side of the map to the other without leapfrogging them all the way across the map. That's huge, dude. That is so huge. So if you're starting in Nagaron, and maybe you want to go to, I don't know, Cathay, maybe there's a sea lane directly for that. Or if you want to go into the Darklands, maybe there's a sea lane just for that. So I'm very stoked to hear more about those sea lanes. New dynamic endgame scenarios. Randomized mid to late game challenges were introduced to challenge the late game steamroll, where the player is so powerful that there's little to no challenge left and less of a reason to complete the campaign. Think Greenskin Invasion or Resurgence of the Undead as a few examples. We kind of got that with Total War Troy, and we got that with Total War 3 Kingdoms, right? Around mid to late game, you just deal with 2 or 3 super factions that you're fighting against to kind of make the player feel like there's harder factions out there. And I imagine that's what's going to happen here. Not necessarily an end times event, but something of the sort where, okay, Greenskin Invasion, Undead Resurgence, Chaos Invasions, something that kind of keeps the player constantly challenged, but it keeps the map dynamic. And I bet you it's probably going to be something like that, since we've already seen it in 3K, and then 3K brought it into Troy, and Troy's been, I've been about this for years, but Troy's been the test bed for everything coming into Warhammer 3 since it's the same fucking engine. So that's my kind of hypothesis. But revamped victory conditions, most players don't end up finishing campaigns, and we want to give them better reasons and a greater level of satisfaction for doing so. As such, we've simplified the victory requirements into more meaningful objectives while avoiding any arbitrary playstyle requirements. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Here, live on the air, I've never completed a Total War Warhammer campaign. I've just not done it. I have not done it. I have always lost steam or interest or wanted to create a new campaign because I always find the early to mid game so much more exciting than the mid to late game. So I'm hoping that these two last points play well together and create an experience where I do want to stick with it all the way through. But I've always kind of just gotten bored or figured, okay, I've steamrolled to a point where it's just going to be more of a steamroll. So I do think that these 2 points are huge for the longevity of the game. And let me know what you think in the comment section below. I mean, do you often complete campaigns, or do you get them to like a 50, 60, 70% portion? You go, okay, I know what's going to happen from this point on, and I just kind of bow out, or do you always complete them to full, completion? Corruption rework. Players will have new tools for spreading or reducing corruption through more active usage of their armies. Small amounts of natural reduction will also be available to uncorrupted factions. I could probably see this being done as like a stance, or maybe certain units that are particularly corrupted or incorruptible, maybe help out with reducing corruption, something of the sort. Because, I mean, it would make sense, right? If you have maybe raiding in your own territory reduces corruption. That could be a cool mechanic, right? Like, you've got this army. Oh, we have to root out the corruption, and we go and just tear apart the land. So I could see some cool, fun mechanics behind that. 8-player multiplayer campaigns, and as a bonus, only the host of an Immortal Empires multiplayer campaign needs to own all 3 games. Friends who only own Warhammer 3 will still be able to join the campaign, though their legendary lore choices will naturally be limited to the ones they own. Yeah, but it'd be kind of cool if it wasn't like that. Like, hey, you know what, dude? I'm really looking at this DLC pack. Can we do an Immortal Empires campaign a little bit so I can play it? Or, I don't know, you can't really limit their turns, but if it just was allowed them to get a feel for that legendary lord and say, oh yeah, I really like this. I'm gonna play with it. I'm gonna do it. I'd love to see that. But as you can see, on top of the enormous collection of content, there are plenty of new features and improvements on the way, including a new lease on life for many of the older legendary lords. We'll be talking about each of these points in the weeks to come, so watch out for more deep dives into them in the future. I saw deep, and I was like, what could this be? It's probably going to be, then I saw dives, and I'm fucking stupid. But why we're calling it a beta, and this basically goes to the point with, we're going to talk a little bit more about Immortal Empires and how it's built. In order to create the game mode, the development team had to collect and combine the content, features, mechanics, systems, and code from 3 different code bases into a single mega campaign. Now, taking big chunks of content, data, and code from one game and porting them into another is always a challenge, speaking from experience in this regard, and takes a significant amount of time and tailoring to get all the pieces to play nice with each other and work properly. Now, I am not discrediting that statement, and I am absolutely not saying that this is an easy task by any stretch of the imagination, but if you went into Warhammer 3 from a development standpoint, or for Warhammer 2 with a development standpoint of knowing you're going to combine all 3 maps, you would think that there would be some sort of code base that would be easier to integrate across all 3. I guess that's kind of that's the tragedy of siloed developing, wherein they hey, here's the game at this point, start making 3 off of it. And that's what they did for 2. 2 was built off of an older version of 1, and 3 was built off of an older version of 2. And it's why we got all these weird overlap issues. And I'm not a developer. I know basically no object-oriented languages. I know Java, and that's it. So I'm talking out of my ass. I'm talking purely from a YouTuber who's looking at the fact that they've been developing this for years and asks, why wasn't that kind of something that was planned? But again, I don't know. So I'm not throwing shade here. I'm just like, well, maybe that should have been in the forecast. Who knows? But in short, Immortal Empires isn't just a port of content from one game to another. It's a mountain of phenomenally change-sensitive technical work. Here are a few examples of what's still being done as we speak. Lighting across battle maps is more advanced in Warhammer 3, so it takes time to get all the older environments reauthored to meet the same current standards. Achieving parity across other details, such as the UI, character models, VFX, audio, and general game balance, will be a gradual process that continues over time. I guess that statement right there, such as the UI, kind of defeats everything I just talked about in my precocious way, because it's like, yeah, every UI for 1, 2, and 3 is different in some regard. There's some element that changes the way it kind of slots together and ways things move and stuff like that. Are you talking about 3's UI compared to 1? That's a drastic change. So I guess that's a really, really good point there. I'm done. Corruption is also a biggie. We changed how it works quite fundamentally in Warhammer 3, and we're doing even more to improve it in Immortal Empires. It's a game system that touches every playable race in regard to how they exploit, react to, or suffer from corruption. So it's a system that will continue to evolve until it settles in a good place. So this just kind of gets you an idea of like a lot of the stuff that they're working on, and they can say that they said like, hey, we could write a whole novel about all the stuff that's going to be really sensitive and going to be really needing a lot of tweaking. But they're saying that when they release Immortal Empires as beta, it is definitely not final, and it won't be final for years to come. Ultimately, this is an entire 3-game product, won't truly be complete for years to come, which is why we're initially launching it under the banner of a beta, which I'm totally fine with. I mean, I think if Mortal Empires had a beta moniker attached to it, a lot of the issues that we had with it, with long turn times, a lot of those bugs, it's not that they would feel excused. It would feel more appropriate. Like, well, yeah, it's in beta and they're still kind of working these things out. I think putting that beta tag on there is a really good approach, because coming into Immortal Empires, I expect long turn times. I expect a lot of really buggy, weird stuff with how the AI interacts with each other. I'm expecting that because the Mortal Empires had that, and it was rough. We didn't get streamlined turn times for what, like 3 years after Mortal Empires came out? Maybe 2. Maybe I'm being dramatic, but still, it was a much longer process. So I'm very interested to see how Immortal Empires feels at start and what it feels like 3-4 years from now. That's a long goddamn time. But you're able to start a full sandbox campaign to play and conquer however you wish. Use any Legendary Lord accessible based on your game ownership from any of the 3 games, or experiment with the older Legendary Lords, benefiting from their revamp, especially Gorst. Oh, given the sheer scale of the project, there are bound to be some visual and technical bugs, and we'll be providing a known issue list when Immortal Empires goes live. Nevertheless, we're confident the game mode will be massive, packed with content, functional and fun on day one. And the evolution of Immortal Empires here, they're pretty much saying, like, leave some feedback, let us know what you're thinking about it, things that you want changed and whatnot on the subreddit. We'll set up dedicated feedback channels for you to provide your thoughts. We'll also be keeping a keen eye on the popular community hangouts like the Total War subreddit. Major patches will still arrive alongside new content packs as they did in Warhammer 2, but we'll also be releasing interim patches between the content packs as well. When we start seeing trends around certain topics and features in Immortal Empires, we'll bring those items to the forefront of the queue and react to your feedback as quickly and efficiently as we're able. With all that in mind, when the Immortal Empires beta goes live, the best approach is to consider this phase 1. It'll be the most enormous and very strategic sandbox we've ever created, with all the content you expect and more. We know it'll only get better over time. More to come, so stay tuned for more about Immortal Empires and all the cool stuff coming to Warhammer 3. So I'm stoked on this shit. I'm excited to, jump into all of this, especially Bellacor's Legendary Lord. I want to see how his faction, what he is like as a faction. Does he have a bunch of specific faction mechanics? Is he basically, you're playing Bellacor, and you're basically playing the Undivided Demon Prince? How does that work itself out? Also, all of the Legendary Lords on the map is going to be great, especially with those sea lanes. We already have that leaked map we've taken a look at, and if that's any indication of what we're going to be playing on, or they said this is the not finalized version like they said before in 2, that could be so fun, and it could be such a titanic endeavor. I'm glad to see 8-player multiplayer campaigns, because that can make those campaigns very, very fun, a little less tedious, because you're playing with friends and you have a specific target and what have you. I am really curious though about how the dynamic endgame scenarios and revamped victory conditions are going to work, because as I've said, that's a place I really kind of lack in myself personally when I play these games. I always find myself falling off. So how are you guys feeling about this? Are you excited about Immortal Empires? Is this, again, are you still too burnt from the beginning? I think that Immortal Empires is the boost we need in the game. And I think that it's going to go a long way to improving the quality of playing Warhammer 3, because Warhammer 3 right now, it just hits that sticking point where it's like, okay, I've played through these campaigns. I've done the Chaos Realm campaign. I'm done. I'm done with this campaign. Let me play every single lord I've purchased over the many years, or the 6, 7, some odd years of development across 1 and 2. Let me have some fun with that Immortal Empires map. So go ahead and let me know what you're feeling in the comment section below, how you're feeling about Immortal Empires, about Warhammer 3. The balance patches and everything have come out. I think we're on 1.2 with 1.3 on the horizon. Is that, I think that's the number, the numbers we're on. And from the small stint we played about a week and a half ago on Sunday, it was very good. The game felt better as far as the way the AI's bias works, but keep in mind I was playing on normal to show off how to play the game. So from what I experienced, things were better. But again, let me know in the comment section below. Do you think the game is actually still not in a great point after 2 series of patches with a 3rd one sometime on the way? Whatever it is, let it be known. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.